Welcome back to Growth Over Easy. We are in part 5 of our 5-part series on the relational patterns that are killing your connection. Today, we're talking about the time machine and what happens when the conflict you're having today is connected to things that have happened in the past and what to do about it. Before we dive in, if you would like a PDF of all 5 of these strategies, go to growthovereasy.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and in your welcome email, you will get the PDF. Maybe you've experienced this. Something is said over dinner, there's a change of tone, a comment's made, and all of a sudden you're in a little tiff. And then a few minutes later, as the argument starts to escalate, you realize you're no longer talking about what just happened. You're actually talking about something that happened 3 months ago, or maybe even 3 years ago. You're frustrated, your partner's confused, and what once was a small moment is now a referendum on everything. That's the time machine. When the time machine happens, a minor conflict pulls up a major old wound. So every fight starts to feel like the same fight. And you find yourself making sweeping statements. Maybe you say something like, "You always, you never, this is just what you do." And the present moment completely disappears, and suddenly the whole relationship history is on trial. And your partner, if they're on the receiving side of this, is going to feel like they can never escape their past mistakes, and you're going to feel like nothing ever actually gets resolved. Nothing stays in the present because something in the past never got what it actually needed. There's this unresolved injury running in the background. And it's not a grudge, it's not pettiness, it's an actual wound that never received real repair. And until you repair that old rupture and you treat that old wound, it's going to keep surfacing over and over again whenever something pokes at it. And you may be thinking, okay, I can just apologize for whatever this old wound is. But the thing is, there's a difference between an apology and repair. And here's the distinction. This is really important. An apology is, "I'm sorry that happened." Repair is, "I understand what that did to you. I see how it landed. I get why it still hurts." Most of the time, couples apologize and rarely truly repair a rupture. And so the wound stays open. It might scab over for a little while and function, but with just enough friction, it gets ripped back open and suddenly you're back in 2021. And until we treat the deeper wound underneath this time machine, the thing that every fight keeps coming back to, it will continue to repeat itself over and over again. Now, it's important to note that the time machine doesn't necessarily have to be something that happened in the relationship with your partner. It could be something that originated in another relationship or likely in early childhood, but it keeps getting bumped up to because of today's conflict. But again, as soon as today's conflict hits that old wound and rips off the scab, we're no longer just dealing with what's on the table. All of a sudden, we're dealing with something that happened years and years ago, which makes the time machine really messy to resolve because your nervous system has stored this old injury. And so when something comes along that is familiar enough to this other thing that had happened, your threat response goes off and you're on the defense. And if you're the one who is experiencing this and your partner's on the receiving side of this, what they're likely to start doing is walking on eggshells around you. They might not bring up certain things because they're afraid it's going to trigger the time machine. It's going to hit this old wound, and then a disagreement, a simple conversation is going to turn into a full-blown fight because they don't know what's going to trigger it. So they're going to start managing and start minimizing instead of being real with you. So you stay stuck in this same loop, the same fight with different triggers, and both of you start to wonder if anything ever actually gets better. Again, this is when you're in a relationship where you keep having the same fight over and over and over again. If that's going on, this is your clue that, there is something deeper. There's a deeper wound that needs to be treated, because if it's not resolved, we're going to stay stuck in this cycle. And honestly, relationships in this cycle start to feel really exhausting. And it's not because you don't love each other. It's because you keep colliding with the same unhealed thing from the past. So how do we get out of it? Well, the first step is awareness. We need to notice when we're no longer talking about the present moment. We need to notice when we are starting to bring things up from the past. Or again, if you're on the receiving side, maybe you get to point it out and say, "Hey, I don't think we're talking about tonight anymore. I think we're talking about something else." So you're recognizing that the time machine is taking place. We were talking about what happened at dinner, but now we're talking about something that happened at your parents' house 6 months ago. And when we have this awareness and we say this, I don't think we're talking about tonight anymore. We're creating space for both partners to take a step back and look at the conversation and say, yeah, we're definitely getting off track here, which gives you the opportunity to ask the question, what is this actually about? Because it's clearly not about the thing that came up in the moment tonight, right? Because if it was, we would just be talking about that. And it's probably not really even about the thing that happened at your parents' house 6 months ago, because if it was, we would just be talking about that. But because it keeps looping back to this other location, there's something here that's really tender. There's something here that continues to be pressed on and continues to hurt. So what is actually going on? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. In order to dig into what the time machine is really about and get to that place of resolving the original rupture, it is going to take a lot of patience on both sides. Because a lot of times we don't want to talk about the past. We want to move on from it. But if we're continually having the same fight over and over again, we have to stop and look back and say, hey, what was the need that wasn't met? What was the hurt that happened that was never addressed? And we have to address that hurt so that we can move forward from it. So if you and your partner are not in a place where you can have that conversation because it continues to get heated, it continues to loop, more and more things get stacked on top of the table, that's your sign to get some extra support. And if you're looking for someone to support you through that, I love working with couples. It's something I do regularly, and I'd be happy to support you. Click the link in the show notes if you want to book a consultation and chat about what that could look like for you and your partner. Because dealing with that old rupture, that's where repair lives. It's not about relitigating the past. It's finally giving the past what it needed so it can stop showing up as an uninvited guest in your present relationship. So the time machine isn't proof that you're stuck or that your relationship is broken. It's proof that something real happened that mattered to you or to your partner and never fully healed. It didn't resolve. There wasn't repair. And you don't just fix it by letting go. You fix it by giving it what it actually needed in the first place: acknowledgement, understanding, and real repair. When the past finally feels heard, it stops hijacking the present. And that's when you get to actually be here together. I hope you have enjoyed this short series. And again, if you would like a PDF of all 5 of these patterns, growthovereasy.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and you will get it in your welcome email. I hope you have a great week, and I hope you choose growth.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're a fan of the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect, you can join me over on Substack or follow me on Instagram @LilyRachels. Let's build love that grows.